What's a moment with a friend where you just had enough of their bullsh tea? Horrible toxic friend who only ever talked about herself. She constantly complained about every aspect of her life. I knew way too much about her marriage. She and her husband both had drinking problems. But she just talked tea about him and his drinking all the time to anyone who would listen and constantly berated him no matter who was around. Friends. Strangers. People they had just met that day. It didn't matter. Made the mistake of going on a group vacation with them. By the end, I never wanted to see either of them again. And I didn't. My friend was just generally an asshole and difficult to communicate with. So 4 other friends and I all sat him down and we're like, bro, you're an asshole. Stop it. So he proceeds to tell us how since we all think that makes us the common denominator. Double quote. Really? No. Really, dude? Not a good friend. More of an acquaintance than anything. In middle school he kept pantsing me. One day he did it in front of a group of girls so I got sick of it, and when we were in the hallway in between class I pulled his pants down and then his underwear too. I felt pretty bad about it afterwards, but FCK that guy. FCK you Brad, you probably still asshole. Friend wanted help to move to a new apartment. He arranged for movers to move the furniture. But wanted me and my van to move some stuff he considered too fragile for the movers. My job was very busy and I tried to get out of it. But he and his wife begged and cajoled. Okay. I worked a double shift on Friday to get Saturday off. And turned up Saturday morning to help. My friends were still asleep in bed. They hadn't packed anything and the movers were coming in 3 hours. Oh. They're also unemployed and had plenty of time to pack. But were just too fking lazy. So I spent 3 hours helping them pack all their shit in boxes. When that's done, I spend the next 8 hours carrying and loading stuff into my van. Drive 20 miles to the new place and unload. 3 van loads. Eventually it dawns on me their shit is not fragile. It's ordinary household stuff. They just used me as free labor. The movers charged by the hour and had a big truck that they didn't fill. They had the room and the manpower. And could have easily loaded up all the stuff I moved and drove. For $100 extra. I calculate my 12 hours of work. 150 miles of driving, includes driving to the friend's house, saved my useless cheap ass friend about $100. He didn't pay for gas. Or food or anything. Totally fking useless tool and I never helped him out again. This was years ago before Uber was a thing. I had a very toxic best friend who was constantly making terribly and irresponsible decisions. It was her 21st birthday and I offered to be the DD because I don't drink. She told me no and that her boyfriend would drive us home. Long story short, she encouraged him to get wasted and I ended up stranded in Hollywood. Thankfully, I had just befriended this awesome new girl and called her for a ride home at 2 AM. This new girl became family and just stood beside me in my wedding last month. One door closed. Another opened. My friend group always made it a competition to see who was the most depressed. It was toxic and I'm glad I left. Our good old echo chambers. Because why try and fix something when you can just complain about it endlessly to people who already agree with you? My friend blatantly degraded everything I did. I told her I got an interview at a company I'd been applying to. I was very excited and she basically told me it wasn't anything to be proud of and the job was dumb. Okay. Goodbye. My ex best friend got kicked out of his house and lived with me and my mom for 3 months. He didn't have a job, license, and the only thing he contributed to the household was cleaning every now and then. I drove him everywhere and he never gave me gas money. etc. Just a huge freeloader basically. One day he was at another friend's house and asked me to do his laundry for him. I said no, I'm not touching your dirty, cum stained, underwear. Do it when you come back, and he got pissed at me. He literally said, I quote, "It's the least you could do for me." Double quote. I said, "The least I could do for you." And then I went on to tell him I'm not his fking mom. I don't have to do his laundry for him. and told him he could find somewhere else to stay. It was almost a year ago, and we still haven't hung out since. He moved in with another friend before their mom kicked him out 2 weeks later because he refused to get a job and contribute to rent. Also, he asked said friend's mom for $700 to pay off a school debt. Didn't really make it seem like he would be paying her back. She said no. I have so many more examples of irritating shit he did when he lived with me, but it's way too much to type out. When my best friend agreed to a Roman Catholic church wedding even though both she and her now husband are atheists. Her parents wouldn't pay for it otherwise, and, to my dismay, she really wanted her to unleash her inner Princess Bridezilla. I'd never seen this ugly side of her character despite our 6 years of friendship. She sneered and snuck her way through the planning until her hypocrisy and materialism disgusted me. Atheist? Fine. Roman Catholic? Okay. But I couldn't bear her lack of integrity. I dropped her and felt instantly relieved. One of my old friends had an online girlfriend. Everything about her was a giant red flag. And to cut to the chase, she was most likely some guy trying to catfish him for his money. One day she private messaged me very flirtatiously and suggested cheating on my friend with me. I sent screenshots of the whole conversation to my friend and he confronted her about it. She then convinced him it was a lie and all the screenshots were fake and proceeded to spam me with threats. I told him about it and he basically sided with her and told me that's what I deserve for trying to ruin a perfectly healthy relationship. When I was 18, I was dating this amazing guy who sadly ended up passing away the day before my high school graduation. My BFF of 10 years was supportive until her shitty-bag boyfriend said there's no way I'd be able to love someone as fast as I did. Now a good friend would say it's none of his business and leave it be. Nope, my BFF decided to agree with him. After she dated and loved so many asshats in like days who treated her like shit. Yet I, someone who's never felt love from anyone else in my life because my self-esteem was such tea and she knew it. Finally find someone and he f-king dies. I don't think falling for someone in 6 months is fast for falling in love. He was amazing and if it wasn't for him I would be who I am today. Because of that, our friendship went to hell. I never realized how much of a doormat I was to her and let her treat me like shit all the time. Then she went too far and destroyed my boyfriend's favorite shirt I always saw him in. And by destroy I mean, covered in mustard. Ketchup. Old pictures of us. White Sharpie saying things like where's the pills bitch, I killed myself to get away from you and so on. She cut it to pieces and then her boyfriend and his other guy friend jerked off on it. This was my BFF I knew since the 4th grade. Someone I always thought had my back. Someone who we joked about being in each other's weddings and having kids grow up together. Having wheelchair races in the nursing home. Until her evilness was put towards me I never realized how shitty of a person she really was. We worked together. My husband herniated a disc in his neck. When I told her I had to leave to take him to the ER because he couldn't drive, he was in so much pain. She got mad at me and said, do you know the position that leaves me in? We're not supposed to be by ourselves. We answer phones all day. Other people were there that could help. She said the only way I could leave was if I called our boss, who was on vacation. And I was already working it out with the person in charge that day, and asked if I could leave to take him to the ER. Mind you, she took off at least one day every other week. Without notice. To go get shots for her back issues. Now, someone who has back issues should know good and damn well how painful and possibly serious a herniated disc can be. Needless to say, we are no longer friends. She got fired for her BS 5 days later. It wasn't the first time. She had apparently been causing issues before I started and I had no idea. I am now a manager at the company in the position she wanted. I had a few friends who were simply two-faced. To your face. They were the nicest people around. But behind your back they'd talk you. Spread rumors. Leak closed Facebook posts or private chat logs to try and make you look bad. Edit comments after you responded so it looks like you had a heated response, something innocent. Etc. They were exceedingly fun people to be around and that helped mask that they were playing mind games. They'd always be trying to set people up for an emotional response so they can go look at what he said. I started catching on after I noticed people started attacking one another, myself included. People would know about things I said in private. And I ended up getting heavily involved in drama because of it. I let my guard down and they abused my trust. And convinced me to play the game back without me realizing it. Charisma can be strangely influencing. I ended up backing off. And just walked away. They were truly toxic. Corrosive people. Never spoke to any of the people involved with that group again. Basically had to clean house. Purge friends. Couldn't trust anyone associated with the entire crew. Dude is the only person I've ever met who genuinely believed in social Darwinism. Doesn't matter if you started out with nothing or started out with huge bank accounts. Cough. If you don't rise up then you don't deserve to. Then got really upset when the house full of artists and broke college kids all got mad at him over the course of months when he, the only wealthy one around, kept talking like that. After a bad falling and she tries to reach out and I'm like okay cool water under the bridge. Then I realize it's because she has no friends and only call me to tell me about herself for hours. Yeah no thanks one-sided friendship. Should have never been reeled back in. Stopped being best friends with this girl I've known since the 5th grade at the end of my senior year in high school because I saw screenshots from a friend that she was talking shitty about me behind me back and spreading rumors to friends of mine and people saying I was a slut. That if they touched me they should get checked. And that I was a crazy drug addict. I finally had the guts to block her and stop all contact and not hang out with her anymore. Good thing we had no classes together. In high school, my friend always claimed to sleep with so many women. He would point at random hot girls in public and be like yeah that's Amanda. I slept with her. And I would just have to take his word for it. It was always at convenient times like when we are pulling away on a bus or train while she is outside so the random girls could never verify the account. One day we were standing on a train platform and he pulls this shit again and points at a random hot girl. That's Becky. She goes to my high school. We slept together. I was having no more of this shit. Well let's go say hi. I said to my friend as I started walking in her direction. That's when my friend suddenly becomes panicked and is trying to stop me frantically. I continue on. Becky hi. I'm S friend. As I point to my friend who is beet red with embarrassment. This girl stares at us in utter confusion. My name isn't Becky. Who are you guys? I just said. Thank you. That will be all. My pal swears to this day that he just made a mistake and only thought that she was his friend. But he stopped doing it. Not one moment. But over the course of a year or so, I grew very detached from them because I realized that all they did was complain about everything. Always brought down my mood. Not a good person or mindset to be around. Heard the whole you are who you associate yourself with quote and realized I didn't need to be friends with that person anymore. When she took credit for all of my party planning, I spent a lot of time and effort. But she told everyone it was hers and hers alone. F-king bitch. Ugh. I had a friend who flipped shitty about always planning everything. Several things wrong with that. She decided to let her dear old friends know this by throwing a massive tantrum. She was claiming credit for planning everything. Which damn well wasn't even true. And the previous several times we got together were based on her tight schedule. She was being picky and miserable and shot all our ideas down. Or she just went full control freak and decided everything for us. Bitch. You can't have it both ways. If you have to do it your way, you can't turn around and complain people aren't doing it for you. We are no longer friends. I was stuck in a foreign country and had lost my money and my cards. Called my best friend for help. Asking for a cash forward. And with immediate payment upon return home. This is important. I've never ever had a habit of borrowing. I was desperate. I was staying with a friend in the country. But who was a poor student. So, I did have a place to stay. I had plane tickets home a few weeks later. But no money for food or even the train to the airport. Turned out the real friend wasn't my best friend back home who I had helped out before, but the poor student who lived off of $1 ramen cups to help me out and feed me. When they decided to skip the only wedding event I was having in the US, my bridal shower, and go shopping instead. After spending the week leading up to it repeatedly telling me how excited they were to help celebrate my wedding. I'm learning that getting married and having a wedding is a great way to see who really cares about you. I learned this the hard way. I don't have much family and I begged my uncle, his wife, and his mother, my only surviving grandparent, to attend my wedding, which was on the opposite side of the country, US. They hemmed and hawed for months saying things like, "We need to see if we can't take off work," before telling me just a couple of weeks before that they're not going because of money issues. Which I call bullshit because I know my uncle has money and I also offered to pay for the flights and a hotel for them, which I couldn't really afford. But I really wanted people I can call my family there. I'm pretty sure they never intended to go from the get-go and I'm still pretty messed up from that. I watched my best friend shift from being a fellow stoner to a full-on coke addict. One day he showed up at my work and made a huge scene because I owed him $20 and he needed it right then and there. I had the $20 but told him to FCK off and I would pay him when I got off work. I gave the $20 to a mutual friend to give to him and walked away from that friendship. I've always resisted drugs, but had some difficult situations when younger. Seeing a roommate going from being a bit of a stoner to a full-on addict, I never did know where or when the drugs were done. And a very hostile paranoid roommate from having been a pretty chill friend. Sad. Really. Don't know where he is now. Was just glad to end the connection. I just came back from a weekend in Cali, Vegas with a friend. I've traveled with her previously, but never just the two of us alone. She's more of a mutual acquaintance if you know what I mean. Anywho, I agreed to accompany her on the trip for whatever reason. Long story short, so it was a nightmare. She refused to pay for anything. Almost got us into a fight with two random girls, on a helicopter at that. And just was an overall asshole. On top of that, her diet is terrible, she's morbidly obese. And she pretty much destroyed the bathroom every night at our tiny Airbnb apartment. I completely lost my shit on the last day of the trip when she turns to me while eating at a restaurant and says, "Yeah, I should tell you that I ran out of money." What? Like, is this even real? As you may have imagined, we are no longer friends. He was a sometimes friend. He'd only text if his other friends that he was closer with were busy and he was bored. I'd invite him to stuff and he would say maybe because he was always looking for something else to do that was better, and then if he couldn't find anything he would come. I was fine with it for a long time because it's not like we were super close or anything. But what pushed me over the edge was that he got legit mad at me for not playing a video game with him because he was bored, and I told him I simply didn't want to play the game he was playing. He said, "Good luck getting me to play with you in the future." I replied K and haven't talked to him since. Bestie left me with 10k debt, and while supporting him treating me like dirt and a long ass list of shitty and lies. But I stood up to him and he stole my stuff and left. I was starving for days while he was secretly getting money from family for food and drugs. Would pretend to be hungry while I went to work. She told my mom I was going home with her that day because my friend was mad I hadn't let her have goldfish. My mother left me at school, I don't have a phone, and by that time everyone had cleared out. I was at the school until 10 that night when my mom called her house to see how I was doing and I wasn't there. Where are the teachers? Your friend's parents. I get picked up at 4. When the school closes. I had no idea this was going on. So after the teachers had left I just assumed my mom was late. It took about 30 minutes before I realized I wasn't going to be picked up. And I didn't know why until the next day when my friend told me. When I realized I was their fallback friend. Whenever they pushed others away they'd come to me and act like they were a close friend. Even though they ignored me or treated me poorly whenever I tried to initiate conversation before. I don't know why I put up with it so long. But I eventually cut off contact. It's dumb, but I still hope they're okay. They had a rough background. But at the same time I was sick of being toyed with. I feel like they used me because they knew I had low self-esteem and they could manipulate that. And for a long while they did. Again, they had a rough life. And I wish them the best, but it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I know this feeling. Had a friend for 15 years and the only time she ever wanted to see me or talk to me was needing something. Everything was always about her. I ended up quitting a job to move out of state for her, and now I own land in a state I'm never going back to and haven't heard a word from her. I should have known better considering the fact she talked smack behind the backs of every person in her life. But live and learn. I always thought I'd die without her in my life. But honestly, it's been getting progressively better since she let me down so hard. I've tried even reaching out again, but they made their choice. Life sucks, man. I hope you know you're worth a lot. Don't let people get you down so hard. Hard life or not. She accused me of being selfish for deciding I didn't want to live with her after walking in on her suicide attempt. I was more than willing to be there for her. But also had to make sure I was taking care of my mental health. It's such a tough situation to be in. You care about the person. You want to help. But at the same time, if you're not mindful of your own needs, you'll get destroyed. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Back in middle school, and my first year old HS, I had a friend who did nothing except belittle me and treat me bad. He called me names, hit me, style my stuff, and probably laughed at how stupid I was with other people in the classroom. I was a very lonely kid back then. And since I almost exclusively talked to him, I was always nearby. And he, as well as others, always called me his pet. Whenever he did something exceptionally bad, he'd back down and apologize. Then resume the abuse after a while. And of course, I accepted all of that because I had no one else. As a result, I became someone who's easily manipulated by people who show affection. And after I realized it, I turned into an extremely defensive person when it came to other PPL. I didn't want them to exploit my weaknesses. So I often pushed them away and or showed no emotion near them so they couldn't take advantage of that. He left the school during the first year of HS. And after that, I managed to grow a little. Sure, I still hate meeting new people because I'm scared they'll use me again. But at least I'm not manipulated anymore. I let my friend move into my house as a subletter. I was the main tenant, and she kept stealing off me. It got to the point where I locked my stuff up in a box so she couldn't steal off me. And while I was at work, she ripped the lock off to take my stuff. She then tried to claim that she hadn't done it, despite being the only person in the house at the time. She later stopped cleaning altogether. And when I refused to clean up after her, she rang the landlord and tried to get me evicted from my own house for not cleaning up. My room was spotless and it didn't work. But it was incredibly hurtful and humiliating to find a letting agent going through my house at 8 AM while I was confused and in pyjamas. If she'd apologized after the stealing, I probably would have been quite forgiving. She was younger than me and I tried really hard to be her friend. But the blatant lying was enough. Trying to get me evicted was the last straw and I rapidly moved into my own house with no housemates. It's very clean and no one steals my shit. I recently reconnected with my childhood friend. He invited me to a bar and said that some of his friends will be coming too. I said sure. It was okay until someone mentioned that they are kinda celebrating because one of their annoying friends finally killed herself. I was like, what? They were trash talking her, saying that she was such a downer and that they are finally free. They were laughing and saying stuff like, wow, she killed herself in a hospital in a closed ward. She had to be really determined. Haha, I didn't know that girl, but no matter who she was, IT's F-ked up. I don't want to ever see them again. Had a friend who purposely started drama. When we got to college, I slowly started to avoid her. She made a huge deal of it. It was a little difficult to completely rid of her because we lived across the parking lot from each other and I was friends with her roommates. The last straw was when she wanted to tell her roommate, the other went to school with us, that I had gotten pregnant and aborted at 17. I was in my other friend's room when she decided to basically yell this, and we both came out and told her off. My friend told her she was sick of her stupid drama and how ridiculous her rumors were. She started a lot of stupid stuff between people. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had a distant friend move to my city, where I was basically the only person she knew. We spent a lot of time together at first, and we definitely became good friends for a minute. But I started to realize that A, she never talked about friends back home where she came from. Which made sense when I realized that B, she was one of the most self-absorbed, toxic, judgmental people I've ever met. She couldn't go 5 minutes without either complaining about someone or something, or playing victim of some sort of circumstance. After about 2 months I lost my patience and called her out on it. We had a mild fight, and she never spoke to me again. That was about 5 months ago and I have no idea what happened to her. But I bet she hasn't changed at all. I had these two friends and we were all close, but the other two were drifting. One day I'm getting texts from friend A about how he thought friend B was so stupid and didn't like him. At the same time, I was having a normal text conversation with friend B. I was defending friend B to friend A, but in one of the texts I accidentally sent it to friend B. I had put myself in a dilemma where I had to pick a side. I'd had enough of A by the end of this conversation. Obviously picked B. Bestie turned socially manipulative narcissist turned a group of friends against me. I predicted that my serving as a moderator between our significant others, at their reduced, would be twisted into his ad hominem attacks at me over psychological issues I don't actually have. I called his ass out on the spot for it. Burning 18 years of friendship. Well, maybe 15 years, with the final 3 being nothing but abusive gaslighting of me and our mutual friends. I used to have this friend whom couldn't drive, so I took her to college there and back. Total of 25 miles a day. But my car took up a lot of gas. Little did I know this BTCH had been talking behind my back for the pettiest things ever. I've never done her wrong. It took me 6 years to end my friendship with her, and she low-key resented me because she had a problem with jealousy and envy towards a lot of people. She was filled with hatred. But anyways, I gladly took her to school and back as a favor of what friends would do. The semester ends, and she cuts me out of her life, calling me a fake toxic bitch, and blocks me everywhere. Yeah, I think that's enough of bullshit. I wasted 4 months of every day of the week carpooling her ass to school.